Imagine this. You charge your electric car to 100% at night. You wake up in the morning, and your battery shows 70%. You didn't drive anywhere. You didn't use anything. But your range is already gone. This is not a malfunction. This is not a defective battery. This is what cold weather does to every single electric vehicle on the planet. And most EV owners have no idea why this happens. Today, we are going to explain exactly what is going on inside your EV battery when temperatures drop, based on real data, real science, and real facts. Let's get into it. First, let's talk numbers. Because this problem is bigger than most people realize. Consumer Reports tested multiple popular electric vehicles in real winter conditions. And here is what they found. At around 16 degrees Fahrenheit, that is -9 degrees Celsius, EVs lose approximately 25% of their range just from the cold temperature alone. But here is where it gets worse. When you add cabin heating, seat heaters, defrosters, that number jumps to 50% range loss. That means a car with 250 miles of range in summer can drop to as low as 125 miles in winter. And according to real-world data from Recurrent Auto, which analyzed over 30,000 electric vehicles across the United States, most EVs typically lose between 20 and 40% of their range in cold weather. Some models lose even more. This is not a small issue. This affects every EV owner, in every cold climate, every single winter. So the real question is, why does this happen? To understand why cold weather destroys EV range, you first need to understand how an EV battery actually works. Electric vehicle batteries are lithium-ion batteries. The same technology inside your smartphone, your laptop, your wireless earbuds. Inside these batteries, tiny particles called lithium ions move back and forth between two sides of the battery, the anode and the cathode. This movement of ions is what creates electricity. This is what powers your car. Now here is the critical part. This movement, this chemical reaction, is highly sensitive to temperature. When it is warm, lithium ions move quickly and freely. The battery performs at full capacity. But when temperatures drop below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 4 degrees Celsius, everything slows down. The lithium ions move slower. The chemical reactions become sluggish, and the battery simply cannot deliver its full power. On top of that, cold temperatures increase something called internal resistance inside the battery. Think of it like trying to push water through a pipe. In summer, the water flows easily. In winter, the water thickens, and the flow slows down dramatically. That is exactly what happens inside your EV battery in cold weather. The result? Less available power, less range, and a battery that feels like it is half empty, even when it is fully charged. Now, cold temperature affecting battery chemistry is just one part of the problem. There is another huge reason why your range drops in winter, and this one surprises most people. It is the cabin heater. Here is something most people do not realize about electric vehicles. A gasoline car has a combustion engine, and that engine produces enormous amounts of waste heat. That waste heat is what warms your cabin in winter. It costs the engine almost nothing extra, but an electric vehicle has no combustion engine. There is no waste heat. So when you turn on the heater in your EV, the battery has to generate that heat from scratch, using its own stored energy. According to real-world testing data, running the cabin heater at full power in an EV consumes between 3 and 5 kilowatts of energy continuously. On a typical highway drive, that alone can represent 15 to 20% of your total energy consumption. Just the heater. Add seat heaters, a heated steering wheel, rear defrosters, and you are pulling even more energy away from your motors. This is why short winter trips are especially brutal for EV range. You spend energy heating a cold cabin, and by the time the cabin is warm, your trip is already over. The battery paid the full price, and you barely moved. Here is something even fewer people know. It is not just the cabin that needs heating in winter. The battery itself needs to be kept warm to function properly. Modern electric vehicles have what is called a battery thermal management system. Its job is to keep the battery within a safe and efficient temperature range. In cold weather, this system actively heats the battery pack. And guess where that energy comes from? The battery itself. So your battery is using its own charge just to keep itself warm enough to work. This is called parasitic energy drain, and it happens even when your car is parked. This is exactly why EV owners sometimes wake up to a lower battery percentage than when they plugged in. The thermal management system was running all night, keeping the battery from getting too cold. According to engineering data, at -10 degrees Celsius, battery charging power can decrease by 15% just from cold alone. And without an active thermal management system working to warm things up, that number gets much worse. Cold weather does not just affect the battery chemistry. It also changes the physical environment your car has to drive through. And this adds even more pressure on your range. First, cold air is denser than warm air. Denser air means more aerodynamic drag. Your car has to work harder to push through the air at highway speeds. This alone increases energy consumption. Second, cold temperatures affect your tires. Cold tires are stiffer. They have higher rolling resistance, which means more energy is needed just to keep the car moving forward. Third, the lubricants inside the drivetrain become thicker in cold weather. Thicker lubricants create more friction inside the mechanical component. More friction means more energy wasted. None of these individual factors seem huge on their own, but combined together, along with battery chemistry effects and cabin heating demands, they add up to a very significant range reduction. This is why the range drop in winter feels so dramatic. It is not one single cause. It is multiple forces, all working against your battery at the same time. Here is one more thing cold weather does that most EV owners do not expect. It slows down charging. Not just range, but how fast your battery can actually accept a charge. Remember the internal resistance we talked about earlier? When the battery is cold, that resistance increases, and a battery with high internal resistance cannot accept energy as quickly. According to data from Idaho National Labs, cold weather can increase EV charging times by almost 3 times compared to normal conditions. 3 times slower charging. So not only do you have less range to work with in winter, but when you stop to charge, it takes significantly longer to refill that range. This creates a double problem for EV owners. Less range per charge, and more time needed to recover that range. There is also a serious risk called lithium plating. When a cold battery is charged too quickly, lithium metal can form deposits on the anode of the battery. This is called lithium plating. And unlike normal range loss, which is temporary, lithium plating can cause permanent damage to the battery over time. This is why most modern EVs automatically slow down charging speed when the battery is cold. It is a protection mechanism, but it does mean your charging session will take longer on cold days. Now here is something important to understand. Not all electric vehicles handle cold weather the same way. Some EVs lose significantly more range in winter than others. And the difference comes down to one thing: thermal management technology. According to a large-scale winter study by Recurrent Auto, analyzing data from over 30,000 vehicles in the United States, there are clear differences between brands in how well they protect battery range in cold weather. Some manufacturers have invested heavily in advanced thermal management systems. For example, Tesla introduced a technology called the Octavel starting in 2021. This system acts as a multi-channel controller, managing heat exchange between the cabin, the battery pack, and the drivetrain simultaneously. The result is better range retention in cold weather compared to vehicles without this technology. Other manufacturers use simpler systems, which means their vehicles experience greater range loss when temperatures drop. The lesson here is simple. If you live in a cold climate and you are buying an EV, thermal management quality should be one of your top priorities, because it makes a real and measurable difference in winter performance. Now let's talk about what EV owners can actually do to reduce winter range loss. These are practical steps, backed by real testing data. Number 1. Precondition your vehicle while it is still plugged in. This is the single most effective thing you can do. Preconditioning means warming up both the cabin and the battery while the car is still connected to the charger. This way, the energy for heating comes from the grid, not your battery. Consumer Reports tested this on 3 popular EVs in single-digit temperatures. The results showed a 5 to 7% improvement in efficiency and 3 to 4% more battery charge retained at the start of the trip, all just from preconditioning. Most modern EVs allow you to schedule this through their smartphone app. Use it every winter morning. Number 2. Keep your car plugged in when parked. Even when you are not actively charging, keeping your EV plugged in allows the thermal management system to draw power from the grid, instead of draining your battery to keep itself warm overnight. Number 3. Reduce cabin heating where possible. Use seat heaters and steering wheel heaters instead of full cabin heat when you can. Seat heaters use significantly less energy than the main cabin heater. This simple switch can noticeably extend your winter range. Number 4. Plan your charging around cold weather. Try to charge your battery to full right before you leave, rather than letting it sit fully charged in the cold overnight. And avoid fast charging a very cold battery when possible, to reduce the risk of lithium plating and long-term battery damage. Number 5. Adjust your range expectations in winter. This sounds simple, but it is genuinely important. In cold weather, always leave a larger buffer than you normally would. If you usually feel comfortable with 20% remaining, in winter, aim for 30 to 40% as your minimum. Cold weather range loss is real, it is significant, and it is predictable. Planning for it removes the stress entirely. So let's bring it all together. Cold weather destroys EV battery range for multiple reasons happening at the same time. The chemical reactions inside lithium-ion batteries slow down in the cold, reducing the battery's ability to hold and deliver power. The cabin heater draws 3 to 5 kilowatts of energy continuously, because unlike gas cars, EVs have no engine waste heat. The battery thermal management system uses battery energy just to keep itself warm. Cold air increases aerodynamic drag. Cold tires increase rolling resistance. And charging slows down significantly, with risks of permanent lithium plating if rushed. Together, these factors can reduce your EV range by 25 to 50% in winter. That is not a small number. But now you know exactly why it happens, and you know exactly what to do about it. Precondition while plugged in. Keep the car connected when parked. Use seat heaters over cabin heat. Plan your charging smart. And always leave a larger range buffer in cold weather. If you found this explanation useful, subscribe to Future Auto Explained. We break down electric vehicles and future car technology in clear, simple, honest terms. No hype, no confusion, just real information. See you in the next one.